Hey everyone, welcome back to the 443 Security Simplified. I'm your host, Mark the Liberty, and joining me today is...
Corey, I'm giving out free passwords, Knockreiner.
Corey has been demoted from helpdesk, Knockreiner.
Really? Is that not what CISOs are supposed to do? Give free passwords to everyone?
Oh, please no. On today's episode, we will cover the SharePoint ToolShell zero-day vulnerabilities and what it means for on-premises SharePoint administrators. We'll then discuss a campaign of malicious Chrome extensions that managed to hit 2.3 million people before ending with a service provider giving out free passwords.
Yay!
With that,
I'm not even going to ask for a candy bar first.
let's go ahead and log our way in. So, Corey, I think this is my first episode back in a while, isn't it? That's right.
Yeah, we've had a few guest hosts. Welcome back. I hope you had a good vacation.
Good to know that the wheels don't fall off when I leave. So I'm going to try and take some more of those.
Oh, no. Little does he know I barely held the wheels together with my bare hands.
Job security. So on today's episode, the first one I want to talk about was a story from, I guess it was a couple of weeks back now. And actually, the story starts way back at the beginning of this year. But just a week and a half or so ago now, Microsoft published emergency patches for a pair of vulnerabilities that gave unauthenticated remote code execution in SharePoint's on-premises servers, both the subscription edition and the SharePoint 2019 edition. And they noted at the time that these have been under active exploitation as 0 days since at least the week prior. The vulnerabilities are not new. Microsoft's actually known about them for quite some time. They were originally discovered in the Berlin Pwn to Own event back in May. They were patched in the July Patch Tuesday update for these on-premises SharePoint servers as a pair of issues, which were CVE 2025 49704, which is a code injection vulnerability, and then 2025 49706, which was a authentication bypass vulnerability. So the pair of them together gives you unauthenticated code injection on internet exposed SharePoint servers, which unfortunately, SharePoint servers are typically exposed to the internet to support SharePoint access for remote users that in organizations that have not migrated to SharePoint Online. Microsoft also advised that turning on the anti-malware scan interface integration on SharePoint is a mitigation. It's enabled by default since 2023. But if you didn't already have it enabled, you might be missing that. So,
by the way, since I haven't scanned notes, I may be jumping ahead, but these have been out there for a while, and you just mentioned SharePoint really is typically exposed to the world because you want your remote employees to get to it. But one note here, this is just the on-premise SharePoint servers. Like if a customer or partner is using Microsoft 365 and is using the cloud SharePoint server, presumably it might have had the flaws, but they were fixed in the cloud immediately. Long story short, you should not be affected if you're using the cloud SharePoint, which is definitely exposed to the whole world, by the way, as well, right?
Exactly. Yep. But many organizations, well, maybe not many, some organizations still use on-premise
servers. Yeah.
Which, like, I don't know, Corey, maybe we can chat about that for a second. I understand there are still genuine concerns with cloud services from like a data sovereignty perspective, like especially if you're in a privacy conscious region, having Microsoft own your data, or at least own protecting the data for the most part, it's a concern. But we're getting to a point now where managing your own on-prem internet exposed resources like SharePoint or Exchange is on its own a massive risk.
I've gotten to the point where it's always a concern sharing data with the third-party cloud provider. But I think the question every company has to ask themselves is about their size and the size of their cybersecurity, framework and strategy. And what I'm getting at is Microsoft is it multi-trillion now, at least, multiple billions of dollars size company with a very big security team, a very big infrastructure where security has been forced upon them. they'll do a decent job at securing things. Now, that doesn't mean they won't leak data. They've done it before. They'll have issues, but considering the size of their company, their security practices will be very mature. So if you're a smaller medium business and you don't even have a CISO, let alone one security professional, and you're thinking, oh, I need to keep my data safe, can you really do better than Microsoft? Uh, I would say probably not. So I think it comes down to the size of the business. As long as whatever the cloud provider you're looking at, you validate that they care about security. The next step is consider your own security capability and strategy based on your budget and resources. And most small to medium businesses don't have a ton. So even if they are good meaning, a big cloud company might be the safer route to go. But the reason I use that, though, if you're an enterprise or a government and you actually have a bigger target than a multi-billion-dollar company, then you have a whole different set of security risks and requirements. So I would say whether or not to use the cloud, for most small to medium businesses, it probably makes financial sense, both for what it offers as far as scale, but also what it offers as far as the company being bigger than you might have better security practices than you. But then when you get to enterprise and governments where their data actually is just as important as Microsoft and they actually need that sovereignty and they need more critical security capabilities, then maybe you don't. So I think that's my new take on the cloud, Mark. I think it's kind of silly for small to medium businesses to worry too much about it, considering they don't have the resource to secure their own data very well.
I think another piece is just patch management in general. Like the kind of secret for a lot of these SaaS services that once lived as on-prem is they don't actually, it's not like SharePoint Online is like a million SharePoint servers running and everyone gets their own and Microsoft takes care of patching them. The reality is most companies like Microsoft typically like rewrite the service from scratch to be cloud native. And meaning that, I mean, that's not to say it can't get vulnerabilities, but it's an entirely different type of attack surface than an on-premises server where you have to rely on, directory traversals and the security of your dynamic pages, whether it be
Yeah,
PHP or ASPX. It's a totally different beast. And they can also typically push out updates quicker. They benefit
immediately.
from,
Yeah. That you don't have to
benefits.
wait for a firmware or software release that you update. It'll just go to the cloud the second Microsoft wants it to.
Yep. Generally, they'll have like WAF protections in front of it. Generally, like you mentioned, they will have a SOC monitoring for potentially abusive behavior. So if they detect something at all in the environment, they can protect everyone within the environment. Versus you as the maintainer of the server, these were 0 days for like a week and a half. And there was literally nothing you could do about it other than some of the mitigation advice they gave or hope that you've got like a WAF in place to protect against it.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, completely
I'm not
different.
completely buying the cloud. I'm not saying everything should be there, but I am saying that it for big companies that are putting work into security, I think it's kind of illogical to assume your manually done SharePoint server when you don't have a security team will be more protected than Microsoft's.
Yep. So back to the story. So these were originally disclosed in May, patched in July. Then shortly after that Patch Tuesday patch, I think it was actually the same day on July 14th, a Twitter user called Code White GmbH published a tweet with the actual proof of concept for the chain vulnerability, showing how a single request to a specific endpoint called toolpane.aspx, so a dynamic page, was enough to gain command injection on the server. Other attackers quickly found how to bypass the mitigations that Microsoft gave in that vulnerability, and started exploiting the vulnerabilities as a new 0 day on at least July 18th, potentially earlier. Researchers at iSecurity said they found multiple attack chains that ended with either web shells or file uploads or lateral movement. They even found specific web shells designed to steal the SharePoint server's machine key configuration. It's been a long time since we talked about machine keys. I think it was in the context of Exchange server, maybe. But basically, it's the cryptographic primitive, like the token that the server uses to create and cryptographically sign state payloads. Meaning, when you like interact with an ASPX web page, Your requests to it include a whole lot of information about your state, like the logged in user, their permissions, like the content of forms you're filling out. And it's all cryptographically signed by what's supposed to be a secret key on the server. So if the attacker can steal that key, they can then modify any of the payloads to be whatever the heck they want. And the way that ASPX works, that's a really easy way to gain code execution on the server itself if you can just submit arbitrary payloads to it like this. So Microsoft responded. They published a pair of out of cycle fixes on the 21st, so 3 days later, to improve the mitigations. There was CVE 2025-53770, which includes protections to that code injection vulnerability, and 53771, which includes additional protections for the authentication bypass. They're currently only available for SharePoint 2019 and Server Edition. Actually, at the time of this recording, it sounds like they are available for 2016 now as well, which is good. When I last checked the article, they were not. They also put out additional guidance saying after installing the updates, you should rotate your machine key, and they give you instructions how to do that with like a PowerShell applet, and even manually too through a management interface. They also give some guidance in their knowledge base articles on how to look for potential exploits against your servers if they're exposed to. But I just saw an article today pop up, Corey, that the U.S. Nuclear Weapons Agency, the one responsible for managing our designs for nuclear weapons, was actually the victim
Nothing to
of
see
this
here,
attack
Mark.
as well, too.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
This is not a big target. Who would worry about them?
It is the
On the flip
National
side, I just
Nuclear
say
Security.
government is one of the ones that may not want to use the cloud. But let's say if government doesn't use the cloud, they better have good freaking security, better than Microsoft's. And I don't think that sounds like they did.
I mean, it's tough to throw too much shade since it's a 0-day in this case. Like, yeah, they could have had a WAF to protect against some of this. They could have had like an endpoint protection agent installed to detect and block the web shells. But they said that, so it's the National Nuclear Security Administration. They said that they're mostly in Microsoft 365, but they still have some on-prem SharePoint usage. There was no classified information on these servers, but attackers did successfully compromise them and steal information off of them.
I'm glad
Not great.
there was no compromise or sensitive info. I would still say if you're in charge of a nuclear facility, that I hope I didn't say it like Bush did. If you're in charge of such a critical facility, maybe take the SharePoint server offline during the period there's a 0-day, even if you don't have WAF. Maybe stop exposing it to the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. Apparently, Microsoft is also blaming China state-sponsored hackers for this like swath of 0-day exploits over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, but either way, like if you've got on-prem SharePoint, it's probably too late now if you haven't already patched it. So patch it and follow the remediation guidance then. And definitely consider if you're going to manage on-premises resources, like at a minimum, like you should be inspecting all connections to that resource. As much as we talk about how difficult like outbound HTTPS inspection can be, inbound is super easy. You throw the web server certificate on your gateway that's doing it. And like for the Firebox example, you can then apply IPS and all the anti-malware services and even application control to try and protect against some sketchy activity targeting that server. So hopefully you've got something protecting it and it's not just a web app straight up exposed to the internet raw, because that's pretty risky.
Just a little.
So moving on then to the next topic. I saw this one pop up a bit ago and thought it was interesting enough to talk about, and at least highlights a weakness in this ecosystem we're about to talk about. So researchers at Koi Security published a Medium post earlier this month where they described a campaign involving a malicious set of Chrome and Edge extensions that impacted 2.3 million users. So they start by highlighting a few different extensions, including like a color picker, an emoji keyboard, one that does weather forecasts, video speed controllers, audio controllers, a VPN proxy for like popular social media platforms. And they noted that like all of these are like actual working tools. They do what they're supposed to do. The color picker, for example, was called Color Picker Tool Gecko, had over 100,000 installations, 800 positive reviews, and a verified badge on Google, and it's been around for over a year in this case. So it passes all of the like trust signals we would expect for an extension or just like any generic application. So all of these extensions had legitimate functionality. In most cases, they were benign for years, like they were just there working until at some point the authors pushed out silently malicious updates to them. So Chrome extensions and Edge extensions, they all update automatically and silently anytime the author pushes out an update. There isn't really any notification to the user. And apparently there wasn't enough validation to catch some of this malicious code that was inserted. So the implant they put in is a little bit of JavaScript that monitors all your web activity. It sends the URL you're visiting to a server under the attacker's control, including like your unique tracking ID. It then receives a redirect URL from the command and control server and automatically redirects your browser to that URL. So it seems like kind of simple, but they gave a good attack scenario for this that the attackers could easily accomplish. Like imagine you got a Zoom meeting invitation from someone, you go to click on the link, this malicious extension quickly or secretly redirects you to a very convincing phishing page that tells you you need to download an update for Zoom before you can hop on this meeting. Like that could be enough to trick someone into downloading a malicious program, all through just this redirect in that case. But the thing I thought was interesting on this to highlight is, and I think we've talked about it before, at least a couple months ago, like the extension marketplace for web browsers still feels a bit like the wild, wild west. Like think apps for mobile devices. Yeah, it's not perfect, especially not in Google's case, but at least with Apple, like there's a vetting process that's pretty rigorous. Yes, stuff still slips through, but it seems like there's at least a process. And I expect if an app has been on the App Store for a significant amount of time and it's got good reviews and lots of downloads, it's probably safe. And it feels like on the extension store, which these can have pretty wide ranging impacts if they get compromised, it feels like an area that folks maybe just aren't paying enough attention to, and maybe we're missing something as an industry on protecting against these. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one, Corey?
I think it's pretty clear it is. I mean, we talk about supply chain attacks, and we've been talking a lot about Linux related repositories and distros, PyPy, places like that. But if you think about it, these extension stores are just repos of possible things you can add to a browser. And yes, Google and Microsoft and Apple for whatever they do are supposed to have these abilities to validate anything they put on their official store, but this is clear that there's a hole there. Granted, maybe the app was clean when they first saw it, but they have no good process for checking it every time there's a code update. So it feels like it's a easy mechanism for more supply chain related attacks.
And it's not just these ones where it seems like they were like owned and operated by the threat actors. They were just like biding their time with the long con, kind of like how we predicted earlier, to slip in malicious code. But there have been like actual targeted attacks. Like it was last year. What was it? Cyberhaven was it's a cybersecurity Chrome extension, like a browser extension to help with, I think, data security. And they suffered a supply chain incident where attackers pushed out a malicious copy of their security tool, basically. And it's tough, like with ones like this, where we do have trust signals that we tell people to look for. Like we say, look at the downloads, look at how long it's been on there, look at the reviews. Does it have a verified badge? Like all of these give it credit. And if all of those can be like circumvented or abused, like what the heck are we doing here?
Yeah, Koi or these researchers made it obvious that trust signals are weaponized. And we should know better from places like Amazon, where Amazon store reviews are heavily bots from the seller pumping up it's actually very easy to hack any sort of crowdsourced social media related trust system, especially when they still suck at keeping fake accounts and bots off social media. So the same threat actors are the same scammers that might do an attack like this have the social network bots necessary to game trust systems by giving their own crap stars.
Yeah. Um, what do you think the solution is? Do we stop installing Chrome extensions? Like there are actually like
There's
not trying
many
to be a
useful
smartass.
ones.
There are capabilities, at least in like the enterprise version of Chrome, within a business to restrict extensions to an allow list, and that honestly feels like a good first step for any organization
It
to.
feels nice. I just think about the white hat, like as an organization that is trying to limit what our users use for security reasons. It is a hard game to go full whitelist. But yes, that's about the only thing you can do. There are a lot of extensions that I wouldn't want to live without, like no script, one tab, or ad blocker. So I hope my company never blocks so many that I can't get the use out of proper extensions. But yes, that's
But
it.
at the
Might
same time, that
if
was
you're a secure enough company, you should do that.
and that was what three like must live without ones. Like if you draw the parallel to desktop applications, most of us have dozens that we use
Yeah,
on a regular
so
day.
maybe less on
It
extensions.
feels like an easier bear to try and tackle in this case. But
I would like to see. I mean, the whole point of these approved, trusted repositories, especially for extensions, the reason I only download them from Chrome's extension store rather than just, but you can get an extension off the internet and install it, is because I hope that Chrome or Microsoft or whoever is doing the work necessary to validate. So I do still think we should put more pressure on vendors to actually have better validation if they claim that their repo is the clean repo.
I agree with that one. So moving on then to the last story. Um, this one's just kind of a fun story of a unfortunate incident and people yelling at each other now over it.
I
But
guess only fun in perspective of the attacker.
of
Although
I'm not
if we're
involved.
just Schadenfreude on people doing really dumb things,
Sometimes it's I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't find enjoyment out of other people's suffering. But this is just like a what the heck are you thinking kind of story.
at
So
least we're not that bad.
yeah. Um, Clorox, the I don't know, I think of them as the disinfectant company, but I guess they probably sell quite a bit more
Bleach.
than bleach wipes. Filed a lawsuit in California last week against their outsourced help desk provider, Cognizant, for damages caused by the cyber attack that they suffered back in August of, I think it was 2023. So, a quick recap on that incident. On August 14th of that year, they detected unusual activity in their IT systems, took them offline to prevent further unauthorized access. They enacted their business continuity plans, and it took them all the way until September 18th to remediate the full disruption and get everything back online. So, reading between the lines, it sounds like a ransomware event took down parts of their, or at least they took down parts of their network in response to a potential ransomware event. And all in all, they claim they suffered $380 million in damages from this outage as they were struggling to fill orders or even handle orders from their customers. So
Wow, it must have been really targeted and complex to cause that damage. I bet it was super sophisticated, right, Mark?
oh, just wait and see. So they had outsourced their help desk to Cognizant, pretty popular like outsourced IT organization. And they claimed that they had had regular meetings with Cognizant to make sure everyone was following the same playbook. They said Cognizant gave, quote, explicit acknowledgments and consistent reassurance that it was following their credential support procedures. Basically, if a user calls into help desk, says, I'm locked out, can you help me? They've got a playbook that they should be following it. Clorox lawsuit says that this was, quote, a blatant lie. So the credential reset process, first off, it was supposed to point users to an internal self reset tool. They call it, I think it's like My ID or something. But if that failed, then Service Desk was supposed to verify the person's identity by using their manager's name and their username to the internal tool. And then both the manager and email are supposed to be notified by email if a credential reset occurred. Before we continue the fun stuff, pausing for a second, I feel like the manager name and your username probably aren't the strongest authentication credentials for a password reset. Like I could find that for
That
any
chart,
employee of like any
LinkedIn.
company,
Yeah,
probably.
I agree.
But anyways, continuing beyond that, because it turns out they didn't even do that at Cognizant. So Clorox provided some transcripts, which show on August 11th, the attacker called in to the Cognizant run help desk and said, I don't have a password, so I can't connect as they're working with them. Go ahead.
I'm just stealing your thunder. So you should. I was going to say you don't have a password. Okay, let me give you one. Here you go.
That's verbatim exactly what they did. So the
Who are you
Cognizant
again?
agent,
Here's your password, by the way. I don't really care who you are. Let me give you one.
they provided them a new password over the phone without verifying the ID. The attacker then went back and said, oh, my MFA isn't working because it's on my older phone. So the super helpful Cognizant help desk agent helped them reset their MFA, which then allowed them to log in as that user. Later that day, they wanted access to another account, so they called back. And the Cognizant agent again reset their password without verifying their ID and set it to Clorox at 123, which is,
By the way, a different call rep, which kind of just
yep.
proves the case that this wasn't just one agent not following the playbook, but this was pretty cross their organization of how they
I,
handled this sort of thing. It seems like.
and I know the point here isn't the crap password, but setting the password to Clorox at 123 just breaks my heart a little bit.
I would give them, like, for me, that is, like, if I'm resetting a password, I assume that's my temporary one. So I could give forgivens for a crappy temporary. Like, I don't see the rest of the call log. So like, for that to stand, the follow up should be you need to change this immediately to your real password. But anytime a service rep gives me a password, they're not like, I don't want the service rep to know my final password. So I assume that was a temporary at least. And I would give it credit for at least being slightly more secure than a temporary that you hope they change in 30 seconds. But you're right. It's
Yeah,
a pretty
that's fair.
guessable at 123 Clorox. Who would have guessed someone at that company would use that name?
Now this gets even spicier too. So Cognizant's PR
Oh, the
agency
update. Yeah,
had
yeah.
an interesting response when they were asked for comment. I'm just going to read the quote because it's amazing. So, quote, it is shocking that a corporation the size of Clorox had such an inept internal security system to mitigate this attack. Clorox has tried to blame us for these failures, but the reality is that Clorox hired Cognizant for a narrow scope of help desk services, which Cognizant reasonably performed. Cognizant did not manage cybersecurity for Clorox.
Oh, it is shocking that a huge company lets people in with valid passwords that were
And
in
MFA tokens.
your control. Oh my god, that PR agency should be fired as well. That's insane, Mark.
Especially
Insane.
because they did
They
detect this.
deserve to pay.
Clorox caught it. Unfortunately, it was too late because they were literally valid credentials, including MFA, that Cognizant straight up gave them without verification. That just, it blows my mind. It does not blow my mind. I'm
Yeah,
actually not
that's
surprised even
that
the
is.
least bit.
Uh,
But
I am surprised at that PR. That's like the most tone deaf, stupid PR that's going to come bite you in the butt. I mean, it's laughable. I would use that in the court case against them.
yeah, it's
They think
great.
we're negligent for security for having MFA passwords for access that they gave someone. Oh, are we negligent because we picked you? Is that the problem? We shouldn't have picked you because you're not good enough. Is that what you're saying? We're idiots. Imagine a big company being stupid enough to partner with us.
I'm super interested in what Cognizant's definition of reasonably performed is in this case.
Yeah,
Like
it's
reasonably
horrible.
performed, do everything that you're asked
They
to do
have
by the
recorded
caller.
transcripts. They have recorded transcripts, y'all. But I guess
It's
we live in a day and age where someone just bold-faced lies about things that they've obviously done over and over and over again. No big deal. You can become the president. That's fine.
So back to the story though. Like
Nice
the
pivot.
main the
Thank you
main
for
takeaway from
serving me.
this is like many of our listeners are actually in Cognizant's position in this in terms of managing the help desk for organizations. And first off, if you do not have a playbook to verify identity in a way that's strong that you follow every single time you reset identity, go create one tomorrow. Second, if you are the cause of a security
Yesterday, create
incident,
it yesterday.
yes, if you're the cause of a security incident like this, maybe don't put out a PR statement like that either afterwards saying our customers are dumb for picking us. But the main takeaway though is like you do have to verify identity. And honestly, so at WatchGuard, it used to be we would like call you up on Teams and like hop on a video call with you. Generally, like we're a large company, but small enough that most folks know each other, and so it can be easy to verify identity. I've said it a few times. I don't trust that method either anymore, since a video call can be spoofed.
Deep fake.
So we do have an MFA like process of at least having multiple factors that the real Corey would only know and only have if it was them calling up to reset their password or MFA token. And that is like very important for companies to have right now.
Everyone in our community said it before, but attackers don't hack in, they log in. And as simple as something like this isn't like a cool hack. This isn't some cool, neat 0-day that we just want to dig into because it's technically crazy and interesting. But this is how 90% of breaches, like this is what happens. It's this basic, scammy social engineering and a really crappy process. And I would say another tip is contractors. Like we live in a day and age where we have to outsource things in business. WatchGuard outsources things. But that's why your security team should also have a process to validate contractors. They should have, security policies they're adhere to. You should have rules for how they could, like, a company like Cognizant can be your supply chain breach. So you need to spend the time validating them and validating their employees the best you can before you pick contracting services.
But how the heck how do you even test this one though? Should we go up and start social engineering our help desk team? I mean, we do at WatchGuard.
Maybe we should
partners?
pen test it because I mean, what's sad about this is like, I don't even blame Clorox for that because it sounds like they validated these people were supposed to have a playbook. They were supposed to have a process. Even if you and I agree finding an ID number and a manager name is not the strongest, at least it was a process and playbook that they checked. But the only thing they didn't check was to see if that whole process was a lie. Are they actually running that playbook every time? And I think your point is really the only way. If they say they're doing something, it's natural to trust them. But unless you pen tested a few times yourself, you don't really know.
Yeah, but man, either way, sucks for Clorox. Something tells me they've got a reasonably strong case in this one. I'm not a lawyer, but typically it's negligence that gets you in trouble. And this sure as heck sounds a lot like negligence in this case.
A negligence on the service provider's side, not theirs.
And so if you are a service provider listening to this, make sure you are not negligent in your services that you provide so you don't end up in the same hot water. Oh, man. All right. Time to go social engineer our service desk to make sure that we can handle this well, too. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for listening. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you have any questions on today's topics or suggestions for future episode topics, you can reach out to us on, Blue Sky. I'm at itsmark.me. Corey's at SecAdept. The both of us are also on Instagram at watchguard_technologies. We do want to hear from you. Please share any ideas or comments you have. But otherwise, thanks again for listening, and you will hear from us next week.